Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back with the FIA Nations race at Monza in the Group 4 cars. So this race, the majority of people decided to use the Veyron. Now this car was extremely strong at Monza. There was a few other cars, as you can see there, the Viper and also the McLaren, which I decided to use, that could be used for this race. Now the Viper was okay in a slipstream, so was the McLaren, but without a slipstream you really did need to use the Veyron for qualifying. I think if you were going to get any sort of top level timing, we managed to get a little bit of a slipstream in with our lap. However, it wasn't quite perfectly. I think we messed up the final corner, but you can see just how close this qualifying is all the way through the grid. I mean, we're still 3 tenths away from pole down in P8, extremely close all the way through the grid, especially from P8 I think it was, all the way down to where I was. Just look at these gaps that you're seeing on screen at the moment. 55.7, 55.7 again in P11, 55.7 I think it is, no, 55.8 there in P12 for Rick, and then again in P13 55.8, and then I think myself there only 5 attempts away from the leader in P14 with a 55.8, the first of the McLaren drivers there. So we've got a lot of work to do. I think there was 2 more McLaren drivers in this race starting a little bit further back, but let's see what we can get out of this race from P14 on the grid. It's pretty much a sprint race, no fuel saving, no tyre saving, 11 laps, no pit stops needed. It's a straight race to the finishing line. So in the comment section, let me know how you got on in this race. Before we get away with the race that we're about to see now on screen, you let me know how you got on in your race, how many points you received, what finishing position you finished and what starting position you started, etc. Let me know if there was any chaos. I want to read it in the comment section, but let's concentrate now on this race up in front of us now. So going into turn 1, obviously start of Monza, the turn 1 chicane chaos is always a possibility. So giving them tyres a little bit of a warm up. You see we're obviously with the hard tyres, you do need to be careful as we go into turn 1, and we braked pretty early for the McLaren, but I think that was a case of the Veyron and the Viper having pretty poor brakes. So that was quite a good sign to see, because that is going to give us opportunities for overtaking. But I stayed to the right, made sure Will could go back through on the inside, because I wasn't trying to go for an overtake there. That was just because the McLaren's just got such better brakes than a lot of these other cars. But when I saw that, I kind of thought, well, at least we're going to have opportunities for overtaking as we have a little look up the inside. But yeah, we're not going to go for that. We're just going to try and sit back, let Will go through the chicane. We're going to hold back and then just try and get a clean exit. We've got to be very careful of the Veyron behind us, because even in the slipstream, the McLaren couldn't really hold the Veyron off. The Veyron was just insanely fast, as we see 2 cars already with penalties in front of us. So getting through that first chicane was very important. It looks like we're going to be able to gain a couple of positions straight away on lap 1 without even doing anything here. So we see up ahead, obviously contact gone on between a few cars there as Rick takes a penalty, and he's now dropped down 1 position. I think there was another penalty up ahead, but we're not going to be able to gain that position. So up to P13, 1 position gained on the opening lap as we stick to Will's slipstream in that Viper. Important that we stay in the slipstream, but what I will say is the McLaren wasn't particularly slow at this track even without slipstream. There was different areas of the track where the McLaren was strong, but what was risky was if you lose the slipstream and you've got a Veyron behind you, that car will absolutely destroy you down the straight. You will not be able to defend against that car if you haven't got a slipstream. However, through the middle sectors, the McLaren was pretty strong. The 2 Lesmo corners, particularly good through them, was able to gain a 10th or 2 on them corners, and the final corner quite good through there as well, as we now work our way down the main straight to finish lap 1. So we've gained 1 position and not got a penalty from that lap 1, and that is always a positive on Gran Turismo. So going into turn 1 again, let's just see, can we get onto the brakes nice and late. You can see again on the brakes just before the 150, we braked a little bit earlier this time, obviously not wanting to risk too much with the slipstream. As we see up ahead, we've got Dilstow with a ½ second penalty. I'm not sure where that has been gathered from, whether he's ran a track limit or it must have been a track limit. I didn't see where he actually picked it up from, but as we little look on that replay camera and just look at the visuals again on Gran Turismo as well, this just gets me more and more excited for Gran Turismo 7 when I see these replays. It's always Monza at this time of day. It looks absolutely amazing with that lighting. Imagine this with the dynamic time of day, dynamic weather. These are things that I really hope are going to bring to GT7. So yeah, look at it. It looks absolutely stunning as we all work our way through to the Lesmo corners, trying to gain time. That is where the McLaren was really strong. You can see able to carry a little bit more speed through them corners and trying to make sure that I stay with this group ahead of me, because if we do, like I say, lose that slipstream, it's going to be a problem with the car behind us. We see Dilster there and another car having to take a penalty. So Killian there, I think, had a large penalty. Dilster with just half a second. But that's 2 positions gained, again, by just keeping it nice and clean on the opening few laps. And we're up to P11 with Will in front of us in P10 now. And we're very close to Will now. I'm not too sure if he's actually got the slipstream to Antomics in front of him in that Veyron, but he's probably going to be able to fall him back a bit, because the Veyron, if that Veyron's in a slipstream and Will hasn't got a strong slipstream to the Veyron in front, he's probably going to be dropping back. As you can see, he doesn't seem to be gaining time down the straight. So this is good for me. We're not going to go for a move into this corner, because it's never really a good option to go for a move here, because they'll just get you back into turn 1. So we're going to try and get a strong exit from this final corner onto the power, perfectly onto the white line there. As you see, Will really pushing the limits, kicking up a bit of dust on that final corner. And now will we be able to go for a move? We're picking up a really big slipstream here, and you can see the McLaren in a slipstream is a strong car. As we break out slipstream, still getting good acceleration in the McLaren. It starts to fade around at this point now, but that is okay because we're at the end of the straight into the braking zone. Will, I think, just decides to brake a little bit earlier and let us through there and pick up the slipstream as we go through the first chicane. And now we have to hunt down Antomics in front of us in that Veyron. So 1 move done, nice simple move, braked nice and early, braked nice and late, sorry. Got onto the throttle nice and early, and then yeah, into P10 in this race. And now we're going to have to be cautious that Will doesn't go for a move back into this corner. I wasn't sure that he was going to do it. It looked like he was just staying to the right there, so move over to the right hand side, and yeah, it looks like Will's just going to sit behind on this section here, because again, the McLaren is very strong through this section. This is the section where the McLaren will be able to gain on the cars in front. So through here, this right hand corner, the first Lesmo and the second Lesmo, it's really good in 4th gear. I did start changing the way I did this gear. I remembered from last time that it was much better in 4th gear if we just stayed in 4th and just keeping them the lower revs, because that is where the torque is on the McLaren. Early upshifting there, you can see that is where the McLaren was really strong because of the gearing. The exit of the second Lesmo, we were gaining a 10th on the Veyron pretty much every lap, no matter who it was on that one corner. Then into the Ascari chicane, the Veyron was actually pretty strong through here. It was quite surprisingly strong actually, the amount of stability and speed it could carry through there. So yeah, that was quite a surprise. But we did know one thing in this race was the tyre wear. We're running our brake bias on 0 because that pretty much is a good brake bias from the McLaren at this track. It wears the tyres pretty evenly. However, that Veyron up ahead is going to struggle with the front tyres towards the last laps. It's not really going to be losing massive amount of times, but a 10th or 2 through them corners will give the McLaren the ability to maybe go for a move on the later stages of this race as we work our way down the straight there. You can see again Will picking up that slipstream. Will he be able to go for a move into turn 1? We don't really want to give this position up because we are starting to gain on Antomics in front of us, so I didn't really want to give this position up. As you see, Will's going to go to the right hand side. However, the McLaren again, look at the insane braking ability of this car. It can brake so late. As we look ahead, and there's a little bit of chaos there. It looks like 2 cars, Quentin in that Veyron with someone else I didn't quite see the name, has come together, and that is 2 more positions they're gained. Chaos kicking off at the first chicane, and now we're up to P8, getting very, very close to that slipstream of Antomics, you can see. And also the good thing is now Antomics does not have the slipstream to the car in front, so when we go through these corners up here, we should be able to get very, very close to him. Obviously the strength of the McLaren is through the 2 Lesmo corners. As we come out there, you can see that gap is under 1 second. We just need to gain a little bit of time through here. Let's see if we can manage to creep into that slipstream. We've nailed that corner onto the throttle nice and early, and we're just in the slipstream now, so that is perfect. If we get a good exit off this corner, the second Lesmo, we should be able to pull ourselves all the way up to Antomics in front of us. As we have a little look at the replay, we're in that slipstream. You can see following the toe of that Veyron in front of us and dragging along the Viper that's behind us also there, and that is obviously going to help us defend against Will behind us as well, because we're not obviously in the slipstream. We've got the ability of that extra speed, which should stop the Viper being able to go for a move anywhere at the end of the straight. But you can see Antomics there losing time compared to the McLaren now. Once we've got that slipstream, the McLaren is a really strong car. Without the slipstream, it's probably a little bit slower over a lap than the Veyron, but once it's in the slipstream, it gets the benefits of the speed, and then it's a little bit faster through the corner. So yeah, this is what we were hoping to happen at this race. Keeping it smooth so far, keeping it tidy, staying out of trouble, and we're gaining place. We've had 1 overtake. Can we go for our second overtake of the race on Antomics? This will be interesting. Can we get the move done on the Veyron? The Veyron is obviously very fast down this main straight. You can see even in the slipstream, we're not really gaining a massive amount of time. Just look at that, we're gaining little bits, little tiny fractions we're going to have to go for a bit of a dive here, and I know that McLaren can do it on the brakes. Just look how much later we can brake into this corner. Again, it is just purely because the McLaren is a little bit lighter, better on the brakes into that corner as we get a little bit sideways, they're getting on the power, and actually behind us, when Atomics obviously saw us going for the move, he went a little bit wider, backed out a little bit, tried to get like a bit of an undercut, and I think cars behind pinballed off each other, and unfortunately for Atomics, I think there he actually picked up a 1 second penalty because cars behind didn't brake early enough and hit into the back of him with the pinball effect. So again, yeah, the penalty system still has the issues. It's going to probably have issues for the rest of GT Sport's lifespan. I would hope that GT7 can come up with some sort of fix for these pinball physics, because the pinball physics cost a lot of people positions in races through other people's mistakes, and yeah, it doesn't happen on other games. It's mainly the pinball issue is a big problem of Gran Turismo Sport. I really hope they can fix it. As we see there, Atomics there having to take a penalty along with the car behind him, I think. Now that puts Quentin behind us, who had extremely good race pace in that Veyron, but we're going to try our hardest to keep him behind. But you can see he's into the slipstream now already. Just loses it a little bit on the entry into the Ascari, but he's going to get it back as soon as we get back on the power, because the Veyron is just so strong in a straight line. So far, quite an eventful first 5 laps in this race. You can see it's been a lot of people making mistakes. We've had 2 overtakes, putting ourselves now up to P7. We drove pretty well. We've kept out of trouble. We've done the 2 moves that we needed to do with some very late braking and getting us some two nice moves there to put us up to P7. So now we've got a bit of a gap, though. You can see quite a large gap to P6 there. It's going to be very difficult to try and gain that time, but we'll do our best to see if we can make any sort of impression. You can see the gap to the lead is over 8 seconds there to Rossetti in the lead. He's pretty much, I think he's actually might have close to breaking the slipstream to the cars behind him. I'm not too sure there as we go into the braking zone. We've got Quentin in that slipstream. We'll have a little look in the rear here now as we go into the chicane, and we see that I think Quentin just gets on the power a little bit too early, nudges Dilster to the side of the track. Now, I don't think there was massive harm done with that. I don't think it was massively deliberate. But yeah, he didn't really give Dilster the space on the exit, and then there will be a slight retaliation to that, I think, later on in the race. We'll take a look at that as we get through to later stages in this race. But I can understand Dilster getting a bit annoyed that he was on the outside, he wasn't given the space, but I don't think it was deliberate by Quentin. I think it was just, he thought he had the space, got on the power. It was just one of them things. It was definitely Quentin's fault, but I think it wasn't deliberate as we go through to the first Lesmo now. And you can see that's actually helped us get a little bit of a lead over Quentin, but that car is obviously going to gain some of that back on the straights as we now go through the second Lesmo, and we see up ahead another car with a penalty in this race, and it is Grasser there in the Veyron. We actually had a really good race with that Grasser, I think, a long time ago at this track with the Veyron. I am thinking I should have possibly have used this Veyron, because I actually remember, I think, winning this race in an FIA or P2 or something, using the Veyron and picking up some very good points. So yeah, maybe we should have gave that car a go. But going through the chicane there, trying to get in the slipstream, you can see so close to picking it up, but we're just a few tenths back, so we're not going to get the benefits down the straight. But we can see behind us Quentin in that Veyron is a little bit further back as we skip a little bit further on in the race to the start of lap 8. We skip a lap further ahead, and we're now on lap 8, and we can see behind us there Quentin very close to picking up the slipstream. You can see we've lost a few attempts at this stage, but on the last few laps you tend to come back a bit at these Veyrons with the McLaren with the tyre wear. But just keep an eye on in the mirror now, and I'm not sure if there's retaliation for other stuff going on. You can see that Quentin takes the normal line. He kind of nudged Dilster onto the edge of the track, and Dilster rejoins and absolutely kills Quentin there with that fatality, you can see. So yeah, I don't really know. I think it was 50-50. I think going into the corner, it wasn't really Quentin didn't deliberately push him out wide again, but he did push him onto the grass. Dilster couldn't brake, and I think kind of retaliated a bit with the rejoin onto the track. So yeah, it's racing. It's stuff that happens on these games. People get hot-headed. I don't think people are doing it particularly on purpose. Like, they don't go into these races with that intention. I think it was just a heat of the moment thing there, and yeah, Quentin gets sent completely to the shadow round. So Quentin's race is pretty much over at this point. I mean, this is all benefiting myself. You can see behind us that we've now got the gap pretty much sorted to the car behind. And at this stage of the race, this is where McLaren becomes a strong car, because the McLaren isn't very good on fuel, but it's good on tyre wear. So the McLaren's getting lighter. That's going to give it more speed down the straight, so it's going to give it a little bit more. You can see with the lap times as well, with the deltas kicking in there. the pace is picking up at this point of the race because we're getting that much more speed down the straight, we're getting more acceleration, the tyres are still in good shape, so we're really going to try and push on to see if we can gain some positions in this race. We've got just a few laps to go, just 3 laps after we complete this, to try and make any sort of impression. Are we going to be able to gain anything more in this race? This was slot 1 of the day, obviously, so this was the highest points available from this race. I think it was over 400 points, like 409 points, so anything in the top 5 will mean we're going to get pretty good points. So let's see if we can push on and get anything, as we're going to skip a little bit further ahead in this race. As you can see, we go over the line there with a 1 minute 56.5 with no slipstream with the McLaren. It's a pretty solid lap, and we're going to skip a lap further ahead there as we see Grasser going a little bit wide out of the final corner. And again, you're going to see another pretty solid lap from the McLaren as we go over the line again, I think with another 1 minute 56.5, so a little bit faster again. So that shows you at this stage of the race, McLaren was really coming into its own. You can see the gap to P8 as well has increased. We're starting to close in on that P6. I could feel there might be a chance of a top 5. Just look how close we are to P2. You can see Josetti up there. We've actually gained a bit of time on Josetti. I think he must have picked up a penalty somewhere, but you can see that to P2, P3 and 4, as we fast forward this lap to see to the final lap, as not much happening here. It's all about just trying to keep it clean and hoping that them cars in front are going to start battling away and maybe losing time, as we see a little bit of battling into that corner just up ahead, and we're getting closer and closer and closer. But again, we need some sort of chaos to happen to gain anything out of this race as we join the action now on lap 11, the final lap of the race. Can we get anything from this race? Another pretty solid lap in there, 56.8. Could have been a bit faster, but like I say, it's just trying to push, and you start seeing the possibilities. Maybe overdrove it a little bit on that lap, but look at that, 3 wide into the corner, and there has been chaos. Grasser there has been wiped out, and he's been reset to the track. He tried to go straight over the chicane. He's been reset to the track, so we gain a position, and now we're in P6 in this race with the slipstream to P5. There is a possibility of maybe being able to get into the top 5 in this race. We're going to keep pushing. Can we get that final position on the final lap? This has been a brilliant race, thoroughly entertaining all the way from start to finish. It's had everything in it. It's had chaos, crashes, overtakes. Can we manage to pull one more overtake off before we get to the final corners? We're really attacking the curbs. You can see there, look at the gravel flying up. We are on the limit in this McLaren at this point. We're pushing everything out of it and trying to get, look how narrow we are into the apex as well. You can see them tyres working much better on the McLaren than they are on the Veyron. The Veyron looks like he's lost the slipstream to the car in front as we come through the second Lesmo. We see a penalty up ahead. This actually gave me even more motivation. I didn't know whether he'd take it there, but unfortunately it looks like Giorgio picked up a penalty but didn't have to take it on the penalty zone. It looks like he picked it up a little bit later on the lap and wasn't actually entitled to take. If he would have had to take that 1 second penalty on that chicane there, I think that would have been another position, because it actually loses you about 2 seconds, and them cars up there are probably around 2 seconds behind. As the P5 goes a little bit wide there, it's going to be a drag race now into the final corner. Can the McLaren get any sort of move done? Now I know that the McLaren is very strong on the brakes, so let's see if we can pull them brakes just a little bit later, pushing on the brake, and we manage to go round the outside. An absolutely brilliant move on the final lap, taking that position from the Veyron and up into P5 in this top split slot 1 race of the day. And unfortunately, you can see the penalty there. That isn't going to be, we're just short of that. So yeah, unfortunately we don't get that position, but a P5. What a race from P14 on the grid with the car that not many people use. You can see dominated by mainly the Veyron with the odd Viper up there as well. No one else in that top 15 in the McLaren, so we did I did a pretty solid job, I think, there, and I was really happy with that race. We decided to take the points because I think we ended up coming away from this race with a pretty nice amount of points. I think it was 300 and let's have a little look, 340 something. We'll take a look now as we go to the end screen there, with 9 places gained and 341 points. So pretty solid points for McLaren. I didn't want to use the Veyron, came away with some pretty nice points. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that race. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Some brilliant overtakes, some battles, some chaos. It's what we want to see in these races. So yeah, hit that like button, hit the subscription button if you haven't already. Hit the subscription button, obviously, and obviously hit that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.